Thank you to Dr. Harry Cooper for your rendition of our theme, and welcome to episode 33 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, where we talk about the best Australian comedy show of the 90s ever made, The Late Show, and other D-Generation comedy tidbits. My name is Matt, and joining this podcast today is Alison, Danielle and Kim.
Hello.
And we're on a roll here. We've got another special guest reviewer, comedian, writer, podcaster, radio, everything, and Tony Martin geek, Natalie Bohensky.
Hi, Natalie.
A fake round of applause. I'm so honoured.
I'll give you a real one.
So please explain, how did you stumble upon The Late Show? How did you become a fan of the D-Gen?
Well, I was probably... the first memory I have of the D-Gen is going to a friend from school's party, I think when I was in year 6 or 7, and he had a tape of The Late Show and was telling me, oh, it's really good, and played the Billy Ray Cyrus takeoff. Soggy Woggy Heart. Ouchie Heart. Ouchie Heart. Sorry, it escaped my brain there for a moment. But I never watched it live. I was too young, I think. And I think for the age that I was, which was about 11 or 12, I think you kind of needed to have your parents be into it and let you stay up. And my parents just had no knowledge of it. And if my dad had seen it, he'd probably go, oh, it's garbage. What stupid. What are they doing? Having said that, my dad is like a Monty Python fan and that kind of stuff. So he just, was just like, everything's garbage. Long story. Anyway, I became a super obsessed Martin Molloy fan. That's really my gateway drug to Tony Martin. And through that, I then went to the video store, good old Video Easy, and rented the Best of the Late Show, volumes 1, 2, and 3. So I kind of got into the Late Show through the video clips, which of course are the highlights. They're all the best bits that they were happy to put out for in perpetuity. I just became massive. I don't know how it happened. It kind of happened gradually just from listening through 1995, the first year of Martin Molloy. By the end of 95, I was like a diehard tragic. And in fact, in my room to this day, I have a box of about 140 C90 cassette tapes.
Oh, yes,
that
please.
I used to record all of Martin Molloy on. And it was basically whenever I got home from school. If I was doing rehearsals or sports after school, I couldn't do this. But if I was home, I was in my bedroom going, I'm doing my homework, and I would just have Martin Molloy on. I would be recording it, stopping for the songs, stopping for the ad breaks. Then I was basically curating my own podcast in the mid to late 90s. And then I would just re-listen to them over and over again. So much of that show is like burned into my memory from repeated years of just putting the tapes in the car when I got a license and went to uni, and I would drive to uni every day just listening to Martin Molloy. And so it probably was a good, well into the 2000s before tape decks started, falling away and being, carrying around 20 tapes at a time in my car got a bit old. So I just put them away safely. And when my parents sold up their house a few years ago, they said, you need to come and take these or we're throwing them out. And I was like, you can't throw them out. They're the only thing that I have that has, like a tangible, this was my geek hobby from the mid-90s. Like this was my comedy education, really. I now produce, the little job that I've created for myself now is I write and produce comedy shows, co-write a lot of them, and the influence of Tony Martin in particular style of humour has stayed with me that whole time, and it's a massive, massive influence on my life. So The Late Show was more of a value add to what I got out of Martin Molloy, but obviously there were certain the one sketch, probably my favourite Late Show sketch, and you've probably done this already, is the Warren Perso film that Tony Martin did.
Actually, it hasn't come up in the season yet. I'm not quite sure how far away, but I think it's soon.
It's my favorite sketch, and it's one of those things where if ever I'm feeling a bit down, sometimes I'm like, you know what, I need to watch Warren Perso, and I'll just put it on. It's like a little 10-minute brain reset, and it just always makes me happy. The jokes are so quick. He's such a reprehensible character, but plays it so well. And I love kind of in my life and in the kind of comedy that I do, what I love more than anything are grifters, drifters, dodgers, con artists, scammers. People like that are so fascinating to me. So like recently we had the Tinder swindler and Inventing Anna, you know, all the streaming services with these con artists and scammers who are able to get away with millions of dollars, and, you know, and they're reprehensible people, but somehow they get away with it. So Tony Martin has a really good knack for, you know, playing these kind of grifter characters and things like that. So that's probably a lot of where it comes from. But so Warren Perso is like a champion of that. That's probably my favorite late show sketch. The weird thing is, though, I understand all of the references, but if you show it to someone new and they're like younger, so there's so many references at the time. Like there's a reference to Fairstar, the fun ship. Anyone under 30 has no idea
what that is.
of what Fairstar, the fun ship is. And so you have to kind of explain the references and go, no, this is really funny. And then, but it's just, and the type of films that it was satirizing at the time. But I don't know, there's just something about him saying, oh, yes, my art house film, French Chicks in the Nutty. It's just, I don't know, it just hits my comedy funny bone every time. So I'm rambling already, but yes, basically Tony Martin's probably my favourite comedian, certainly the one who's had the most influence on my life and career in comedy, I guess.
So, are you a Late Show fan?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it's just something that I came to after it was sort of all over. So I do regret not having been part of the magic when it happened. I assume you guys were then? You watched it live?
Yep.
Yep.
I was in a similar boat to you, Natalie, in that, the gateway drug was the VHS best of tapes. And then, a bit of tape swapping around of the full episodes kind of helped me to fill in the gaps. And, sort of, most of what you've said about your journey into finding all this stuff, it's sounding so familiar because, I was also a fan of Martin Malloy. I did a lot of taping as well.
I can't stress how often I listen to these damn things. Like I drove my parents mad. I think they thought I had a problem because I would just listen to this and soak up everything. And I always joke about how, you know, if I do an accent, it's typically not me doing an accent of the person. It's me doing a version of Tony Martin doing the person.
We're all guilty of that.
Learn how to do accents and things like that. So, in fact, Dan, my friend who's staying with me at the moment because sadly his house got flooded, he's yelling from the background, hello. I met Dan after Martin Malloy had finished, so I think in late 1998. Yeah. And he had just been on when they would get this. This is a deep cut. This is a nerd alert. So, how to tell the story? So they had the last episode of Frontline in 1997, and Rob Sitch went on Frontline to give away the giant poster of Mike Moore that if you watch the last season of Frontline, there's this massive, massive picture, framed picture of Mike Moore in the foyer. And they decided to give it away on Martin Malloy if you could write in and explain why you wanted this giant billboard. Anyway, I remember listening to the responses, and one of the responses was, I plan to make a ramp out of this poster or picture so I can jump the Brisbane River like Evel Knievel. And the respondent was the evil Daniel Beeston. Anyway, I rock up at this improv night through a mutual acquaintance and meet this is Daniel Beeston. And I went, the evil Daniel Beeston? Who was going to jump the poster across the Brisbane River? And he just looked at me, and I've never seen like a look of like, oh my God, what is this? Witchcraft. So it turns out Dan was also a massive Tony Martin nerd, and we bonded over that, and that was over 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So tragic Tony Martin fans ever since.
Chapter.
All right, now this is not directed through The Late Show, but it is attached to the DGen, which is the panel, and that is valet Shane Warne. After that shock passing, here's a snippet of Warney appearing on the panel in 1998.
You mentioned backyard cricket. Now, Shane, was it a disadvantage for you being a leggy? Because when you bowl in the backyard, it's usually on grass.
Yep.
The ball doesn't spin as much. Did you have one of those little, like, concrete sort of little driveways to the Hills Hoist where you could use as a pitch or something?
Too much information to say that.
No. Or at the beach on the sand, the ball doesn't turn as much. I mean, as a kid, how were you able to practice your leggies?
Yeah.
Well, in the backyard, it was just basically I'd always bat second ball because it's 6 and out in the backyard.
Yeah.
I hit you for 6 and I just go and bat, so I didn't really practice my leggies at all.
That's it.
Over the fence, lose a rock and start again.
When you take a wicket, do you decide how you're going to react? Do you practice? There's a move you do which I love, which is the. Now, did you decide? Did that just happen on the day, or did you think, today I might go, whoa? Because you can use those if you're. It'd be great if you you get back in the team and just
that shit though.
Turn to the camera and do that, and we'll know you're doing it for us.
I think depends on the situation of the game. You never plan what you're going to do, but sometimes it's a really important wicket or it's really an emotional time. So I think that you'd have a bit of banter between the batter and you really knock him over and it changes the game. You've got to be excited and sometimes you carry on like a pork chop.
I love that.
It's great.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like a wicket and next
I reckon
fight.
do that. I reckon imagine that. Yeah.
The full clip is on YouTube.
And it's a shock loss, to be quite honest. I mean, even for a non-sport person like me.
52. 52 he was. It's amazing, isn't it?
Also, if you're wanting a bit of a tenuous link, perhaps if I mention the movie Crackerjack and the old flipper that Nick was trying to do.
Yes.
I don't think you could have had I don't think you could have had a better modern proponent of the flipper than Warney.
All right, Alison.
So I recently got hold of a copy of Judith Lucy's latest book, Turns Out I'm Fine. And this book is worth a read. It's autobiographical, but she talks about her life in the context of her relationships with men over the years. And she talks about, obviously, romantic partners that she has, but also men she's met in the workplace, which for her, of course, is stand-up comedy clubs. And I guess overall she's quite negative about some of the men she met in the early 90s on the comedy scene, but there was one bright spot which I thought I might read out to you. So she says, I'll always remember one of the first meetings I had with the D generation when I was asked to join the cast of The Late Show on the ABC. I was 24 and had been doing comedy for about 3 years. The only other female in the group, Jane Kennedy, wasn't there for some reason, and at lunchtime we all walked down the street to pick up sandwiches, me and 6 men. I remember feeling like I was in a Western. I was young and anxious about my new job, but these guys wanted me there. So for once, I wasn't trying to make myself invisible in their company. I was struck by how intoxicating it was to be surrounded by men who weren't excluding me. I suddenly understood how some ladies are willing to be one of the boys at the expense of their own sex. I'm glad I can remember that day, because while there were absolutely other men who supported me when I started, it's not a feeling I've had very often. That feeling of inclusion, not the Western bit. So, yeah, I guess we always knew that the men of The Late Show were good guys in comedy, but now we know for absolute sure based on that. So I just really loved reading that bit.
I wonder, that's so nice, and I must get that book because Judith Lucy I was also, as a teenager, like super obsessed with. And I met her a few years ago when I was doing something at the ABC Brisbane studios, and she and Denise Scott were there to pimp something, and I had to run up and go, I'm really sorry, but I just love you.
Probably.
It was before Disappointments. It was It was the one they did before that. I'm tired, or it's the one where they did the show in bed. Half the show was they were just propped up in beds. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah,
and cool. she was very, very sweet. And but I wonder if it was because those guys weren't strictly stand-up comedians. You know, they came from university, review, law, medicine. And then Tony Martin had come from radio. Probably, I think Tony Martin has said that he really only got into stand-up properly once The Late Show had finished. I think he dabbled, but really then only honed it after the Late Show finished. So that to me, and my experience with stand-up comedians, particularly years ago, but not that I've had it a huge amount, but the odd ones that I've met, there tends to be a lot of ego, and it was a very kind of hostile to women environment in a lot of cases. And so I wonder if the good guy thing is because they weren't from the stand-up world strictly, that they were from sketch, they'd written TV comedy, they'd done live theatre kind of sketch shows. It wasn't all about, because stand-up is it's one person, so you kind of have to develop a big ego. But the downside of that is it means you often don't work well with others, and particularly if you tend to be, as a lot of male comedians tend to be, certainly back in the day, a bit misogynistic and a bit ha, make fat chick jokes or ugly chick jokes or whatever. It doesn't tend to be the easiest environment for women to kind of go, you know what, I feel really welcome and supported here. So that's
very much as she described in the book. Yeah, it's very much some toxic males in the early 90s stand-up scene.
Oh, yeah.
I've got the paper.
Daniel Genie's program guide.
Thanks, Matt. So this is Ross Warnicki's critical guide, published in the Melbourne Age on Saturday, the 11th of September. We'll start off with Channel 7. They're back to showing repeats of Inspector Morse. So this is Season 2, Episode 1, The Wolvercoat Tongue. Warnicki describes it thus. Oh, you might know the episode, Matt?
I know the episode well. I just did a big Inspector Morse rewatch last year.
You've done a lot of stuff in the pandemic, haven't you?
Nothing productive.
All right, so yeah, you might recall in The Wolvercoat Tongue, for the rest of you who aren't that, Warnicki describes it thus. A visiting American millionairess who has inherited a priceless jewel is murdered less than an hour after arriving in Oxford, unquote. That's quite efficient, don't you think? Less than an hour?
Well, they were very efficient murderers in Inspector Morse. And multiple. Like, you wouldn't have thought the sweet little university town of Oxford just had so much murder, but wow.
And they had plenty of time to do it in, like a 2-hour time slot for that sort of thing as well. Moving to Channel 9 at 6:30, Hey, It's Saturday. I won't sing any of the selections after the feedback from the last episode. My little impression of, the guitarist. So we had Lee Kernahan performing The Outback Club. We had a performance from Manpower Australia featuring a before-he-was-famous Jamie Dury. Yeah, now better known as a horticulturalist. And doing pretty well for himself. I've seen him on the HGTV channel in the US in a show called Curb Appeal Extreme. Yeah, he's still out and about and doing stuff, and yeah, still on TV in the US. We then had Margaret Ehrlich performing Man Overboard. The Red Faces judges were Shane Bourne and from Getaway, Rebecca Harris.
Hey, thrill seekers.
And then Living Colour finishing up things, performing Nothingness. I'm not sure how that goes. I'm guessing it wasn't like a homage to John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds or anything like that. There must have been something to that Nothingness. And then at 8:30, we had the film Captive. Ross Warnicki says that it's a 1991 kidnap drama based on a true story about a couple who take over a small-town hotel and discover that their first customers are escaped convicts. They are taken hostage as the crooks try to escape their pursuers, starring Barry Bostwick, Joanna Kearns, and John Stamos.
Oh, John Stamos.
Yeah, and this would have been at close to the height of his fame, I would think, too. Full House probably would have still been going at that time. Over on Channel 10, we've got more mystery. This is Agatha Christie's Appointment with Death. Ross Warnicki says that it's another of the series with Peter Ustinov as a fair to middling Hercule Poirot. In this one, made in 1988 and co-starring Lauren McCall, he probes the murder of a touring party who was killed during an archaeological dig. For some reason, murder mysteries seem to be popular right now. Like, it used to be films and the occasional bit of sport, but it's back to, if you don't like a laugh, you can solve a mystery. Speaking of breaking away with tradition, SBS usually shows a foreign movie. Tonight they're showing an Australian movie. It's called Man of Flowers. Ross Warnicki says that it's the much acclaimed but rather ponderous 1983 Australian drama directed by Paul Cox about the relationship between a sexually repressed collector of rare flowers, played by Norman Kay, a young model, played by Alison Best, and her cocaine-addicted boyfriend, played by Chris Haywood. Or, as the ad in the Green Guide put it a lot more succinctly, an erotic tale of a man with a bunch of sexual problems. That leaves us with the ABC. A bit earlier in the night, we had the debut of this British comedy classic.
I may be over the hill now that I have retired, fading away, but I'm not yet expired. Clapped out, run down, too old to save, 1 foot in the grave.
I don't believe it.
Eric Idle wants his royalties now.
Well, surely he's getting that from the dance remix of this thing that you can find on Spotify, by the way. So Ross Warnicki advertises it as a new British comedy about 60-year-old Victor, played by Richard Wilson, forced into early retirement and unable to cope. Now, he says that it's a new British comedy. Keep in mind that this is premiering, well, as far as I can tell, it's premiering on Australian TV in 1993. There's no R next to the listing. But it's this very first episode is from 1990 in Britain. So,
but that's how it was at the time. We had to wait several years for British sitcoms. I don't know why that was, but that was entirely normal.
Again, I feel like going on a Tony Martin-style rant about all of the really good stuff that could have been played, and they wait 3 years and play 1 foot in the grave and keeping up appearances. All right, so the lead-in to The Late Show at 9:30 is Birds of a Feather.
What'll I do?
Season 2, Episode 12, titled Old Friends. While shopping at Tesco's, Tracy meets a supermarket clerk by the name of Trish, her best friend from school and bridesmaid, and invites her to stay as Trish has just left her husband. Sharon feels lonely and also worried that when Daryl gets out of prison that Tracy will be kicked out of the house. And Duran, she just gives advice, which is pretty easy when you're just a dirty cat.
Yay.
Yeah, for the true experience of watching Late Show episodes over again, you have to always watch whatever was on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just happens to be Birds of a Feather for the umpteenth week in a row. The listing for The Late Show, again, Warnicki is still not changing from his usual satire and sketch comedy from Melbourne's DGen. Then at 11 o'clock, The Week in Federal Politics with Order in the House. At midnight, it's the final of the US chat series with Ruby Wax, The Full Wax. Then ATVI News at 12:30 and Rage at 1 a.m. with guest programmer Vernon Reid. Okay, third episode in the row. Do any of you know who Vernon Reid is?
No.
Okay, he's from Living Colour.
Okay.
So again, there's this weird sort of
crossover
symmetry with crossover is a better word, I think, with Hey Hey It's Saturday and people visiting Australia to plug their latest album. All right, let's get on with going over this episode in forensic detail, eh?
Fantastic.
Yay.
That's what we're here for. And here we go with Season 2, Episode 13 of The Late Show, broadcast Saturday, September 11, 1993. And what a really cheesy opening. I guess you really need to know what was going on at the time in regards to the Navy recruitment commercial.
Well,
it's just wrong.
It's satire.
But the whole scandal behind it all. Basically, the Navy were in a big scandal.
I must admit,
yes.
I don't know the specifics about this, but it's pretty obvious, especially looking at the rest of this episode, that there was an allegation of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
With it might have been a senior figure, but it was certainly in the Australian Navy.
They played the commercial. It looks legit until you see the subtitles across the bottom saying "Chicks Welcome."
Yeah,
and then you go,
that was the real commercial until that final shot at the end with Mick
with the ass grabbing.
Yeah, grabbing Jane's ass there. Yeah.
You know, the thing is though, I suspect many women got that in the Navy back in the day.
Yep. Rather like the Melbourne stand-up scene of the early 90s, it would seem.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah.
After the opening titles, we have the opening remarks, and Mick does explain the opening of the Navy ad where the woman claims to be sexually harassed on HMAS Melbourne, not realising that she actually popped on the wrong boat. It was Fair Star, the fun ship.
Oh, boy.
And also the tragic passing of Hervé Villachez.
Yeah.
Resulting in Daryl Summers' impressions dropping even lower.
Yeah, it's this very weird tangent they go on talking about Daryl Summers and the priest teeth, isn't it?
Oh, Reverend Daryl. He was that kind of vicar who was a bit of a perv or kind of like a Les Patterson type character, wasn't he? Something like that.
Basically,
yeah.
I have to confess, I never watched Hey Hey It's Saturday. It was just the one show it was never on in our house. Again, I think my parents just never liked it, so we never watched it. So
you missed all the appearances of the DGen popping up, including Mark Malloy.
Yeah, I missed all. The only thing that I know is that there was a guy who did cartoons and funny voices, and there was Dickie Nee, and there was Red Faces, because people at school would talk about Red Faces. But yeah, I never watched it. I might have seen bits and pieces switching channels, but I never watched a whole episode of Hey Hey It's Saturday.
You're a rarity.
I know, it was a big
with
thing.
5 channels, that was pretty much, if you wanted to know who was in town, what was going on, that was what you watched.
Yeah, we all watched it.
I know.
Yep.
I'm just a freak.
Well, someone who wasn't going to be in town was the comeback tour for Duran Duran. It had been postponed.
I don't know what has he got against Simon Le Bon. Why is he so bad? Was he that daggy back then? I know
it's really interesting, isn't it? That generation in the audience obviously really thought Duran Duran was really a daggy band, and whereas these days, clearly Duran Duran have had various comebacks and done touring around, and there's a real big nostalgia factor. But obviously at that exact point in the 90s, they were just hated and loathed, and people thought they were unfashionable.
And it was weird because it was only like 5 or 6 years ago at the time. And if you think of something that was in 2016, that's not that long ago. How can they be that unfashionable?
Yeah, what was the deal with Donald Trump and him getting elected?
Yeah.
What was the deal with the Brexit referendum? Those people in 2016 were crazy.
But yeah, you're right. It was before that sort of mid-90s renaissance, for lack of a better term, that Duran Duran had, where they had a couple of extra hits around that time. Yeah, but I do like the sort of ad-libbing where Tony says Simon Le Bon's doctor says that he can't sing, and then sort of pauses and goes, no, there's more to it than just that.
Or maybe he could sing and the doctor just did everyone a favour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mick talks about the controversial watch ad with the hand on the boobs.
A friend of mine has actually got one of those watches, and I went out during the week and had dinner with him and his girlfriend. And I was a bit naughty, but I took a bit of a sneaky peek at her bussies. And I had a look and I just went, "Oh, is that the time? 8 cents a day? Your tax bill is being well spent, I think you'll agree."
It's such a clever mechanism, and it's something that in humour and writing comedy and things like that, it's how do you have your cake and eat it too with a joke? So how do you kind of go, let's do the sexist joke, but how do we make sure that people understand that we're not being sexist, we're just telling an obvious joke? And so the way they do it there is to be like, yep, that's what we do here at the ABC. They kind of lean into we're sophomoric and we're irreverent and we're being cheeky, and they just lean into that to take the edge off it. Nobody would actually assume that any of I don't know, maybe you would assume that Mick Malloy might do that. He kind of built a lot of his character on
he's the only guy
mischievous.
that could get away with it, really.
Well, yeah, he was the larrikin of the group. If you want to reference Shane Warne again, he had the same kind of energy, that bantery, sink some beers, crack some jokes.
But lovable at the same time.
Exactly.
He's like a sort of lovable sexist, and it's a really fine line, and he makes it work, Mick Malloy.
Yeah,
he's so charming.
Does.
He's so charming.
Also, because he was so baby-faced as well, because he was only, 25 or so when they did this, and so he kind of gets away with being like, oh, I'm cheeky.
And he was the hot one
boy
as well, Mick. A lot of people thought Mick was the heartthrob of the group. and
yeah, I wasn't one of them, but a lot of my friends definitely.
No, a lot of people were in the Mick camp.
In that way, yes.
I would have thought Jason Stevens, because he has like the square jaw and the hair and...
Yeah, none of my friends were into Jason. We were into Santo ourselves.
Well, Santo's
charming.
Adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's super charming.
And it's also interesting. I mean, this is the first take we've got on the controversial watch ad, because we're going to see a lot of takes on it coming from different angles as we progress through the episode as well.
And also with Tony and Mick talk about Bruce Samazan's hairdresser because of his push-down hair style. Here I am doing that and I'm bloody bald.
It's interesting that they're taking the piss out of that hairstyle, right?
Yeah, because he had hairstyle before then that was a little bit kind of Bart Simpson-y, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mick. Do you remember Mick had that really short haircut and it was exactly the same, because that was a really big look in the early 90s, wasn't it? Sort of pushing down your hair like that.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, who did they describe Bruce's hair as?
Oh, it was like Jerry Lewis, wasn't it?
Jerry Lewis.
Oh, Mo from the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Also, Tony puts Mick on the spot after he claims that he saw the piano. So never bullshit a movie aficionado. Mick also points out that while he did get to do his 100th joke the episode before, Santo is on his 99th, so it's just another excuse to drag out this big punchline, really. So they give him the opportunity to get his 100th done.
The Diego Maradona joke. Well, he's been out of the game for over 2 years. But now Diego Maradona, who says he's fully recovered from his cocaine addiction, is almost certain to make a comeback to international soccer and play against Australia in 6 weeks' time. He claims he's already lost over 10 kilos. Argentinian police are confident they'll find them with the help of sniffer dogs.
I love that joke.
What a dumb joke.
My favourite of Santo's Diego Maradona joke was one that he did on Santo, Sam and Ed, and that was the Diego Maradonuts.
Oh. Much more succinct.
Yeah.
And Santo told his 100th joke beautifully, and in such a natty vest as well. It was almost like he walked off the set of Snowy.
Well, I was just thinking he just walked out of his job in a bank to come and read out that joke.
But he was a bit fired up because when he was heading over to the next sketch...
And now it's over to the news desk with Tommy G.
Santo does hark up in the background about how Mick got a horse, and so it was a nice roll-on.
It was cute.
With the news desk, we're going to skip majority of it because a lot of it's visual.
Can I just say how much I enjoyed the Yitzhak Rabin joke? Because, we've been watching all these episodes and there's been all this stuff about Optus and Telecom, and you think, so, Yitzhak Rabin that week had signed this big peace deal with Yasser Arafat and the Palestinians and everything. And, no, it's an Optus and Telecom contract. I just thought, okay, that's funny.
Well, actually, I will have to point out because it doubles up down the track, and that's the relations breakthrough between Israel and PLO, because Israel recognises the PLO, Angry Anderson reserves his comments for the Ray Martin show, and Andrew Eddinghausen has nothing to say because it doesn't have anything to do with his penis. So...
Gosh, that was a massive joke at the time. Andrew Eddinghausen's nude spread, where you could see his every punchline was.
Technically, I don't think
Andrew
it was a nude spread. It was just like, if I recall, it was like a
locker room photo.
It was like a candid photo that
right.
Probably wasn't very well edited, airbrushed, but he did sue for it.
I think he did. I think he ended up doing a nude spread or something. Like he did a modesty kind of artistic nude spread, or
with a piece of gauze strategically placed.
Yeah, that kind of. I feel like he milked it. Wait, that's probably a wrong choice. But that was that dominated the news. Like, as a kid, I just remember this. Oh my God, footballer Andrew Eddinghausen's candid penis shot. How bizarre that's what we fixated on. It was crazy times.
It was a big story in that time, though.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how big you thought the story was.
So it was published in HQ magazine, which was owned by Kerry Packer at the time. So if there's a person to sue, Kerry Packer's a good candidate. And it was because the publication published a picture of him naked in the shower with two teammates. The photo was from 1990, and it was published under the headline Hunks. Yeah, published with that as knowledge.
Well, so there were actually 3 nude rugby players as opposed to just one.
Again, I'm doing a very quick Google look through an article here talking about it. I don't know if he won or not. I think he won.
It turns out there's a lot of various football players who've been nude in pictures over the years, and it turns out they're all on a non-work safe Google search. So enjoy yourself, treat yourselves.
There you go.
Just don't do it at work.
As soon as this ends, that's my first Google search.
Another reference to the boob watch ad. The company that has received all the complaints saying that it was unfairly cropped, and they do reveal the full ad, which shows a naval officer. Yep,
played by Rob with a beard.
Yeah.
He's got a very nice naval beard on.
He looks like Captain Haddock from Tintin.
He does.
It looks like he should be smoking a pipe and drinking whiskey.
Oh, blistering bubicles. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a very weird looking photo that ad represents. Like, it's a woman in a white dress reading a book with like a man standing behind her, but sort of cropped from you only see it from the shoulders down, with his left hand on her left shoulder and his right hand with the watch on it, sort of groping down the top. It's so weird, I think.
I do remember. I remember this. Do you remember this controversy when it was out? I remember, well, largely because of the Late Show, but I do remember seeing it in the fashion magazines, cosmopolitan type magazines, Vogue, that sort of thing, masquerading as this kind of, this is high-end fashion accessory. I think Judith later on, when she talks more about it, really hits the spot when she talks about the approach of this ad. But that's for further on.
But it was very common. There was a lot of these sort of weird, slightly over-the-top nudity ads, where they would really exploit particularly naked women's bodies to try and sell some product. Very common in this era.
And also the photo being in black and white, sort of being a shorthand for party.
Now, Michael Jackson continues his Philippines concert and fans are in hysterics.
As usual, hysterical fans gathered beneath his hotel room window screaming for a glimpse of their hero.
Oh my gosh, show a smile, please!
And it reveals to be actually Mick Malloy.
I love that.
Yeah, there's all these Michael Jackson jokes where there's sort of casual references to, Michael dragging people back to his hotel room, and you just think,
Even back then,
you would not do that joke these days. But back then it was obviously, he's like date raping people or whatever the allegation is. It's just sort of, they were very casual about it, weren't they?
Too casual.
Michael Jackson in particular is the one who kind of swirls around because that documentary Finding Neverland came out a few years ago, and it was like, we all thought he was doing suspicious stuff, but then the guys who were involved, who were kids at the time, sort of laid out their experiences, and you're like, oh my God, we were all just kind of joking that he was a bit of an oddity and a bit freaky and a bit of a weirdo, and strange times.
I think what's funnier in seeing all of this is the footage of the fanatical fans, especially the one with the sign that says, I love you, Michael. We love you, Michael. We want to see you, Michael. It's just with the picture of Diana Ross on the other side, as Tommy G jokes.
Michael Jackson fans were a weird breed. They were obsessed to a strange extent. I often felt like it's almost like he paid people to follow him around and stand outside his hotel rooms and just cry and faint.
He still has obsessional fans, though, because if you say anything negative, I have friends who said negative things about Michael Jackson on Twitter, and they've been attacked by groups of Michael Jackson fans on Twitter. And you just think, why does he attract so much fanaticism? I'm not saying he's not a good musician, but why? Why?
Yeah, exactly. Something about him just connects with a certain kind of person, and then they're like ride or die.
Yeah.
Up after the news desk is a sketch, and that is shite laundry detergent, pointing out that all the cliches in laundry commercials.
That wasn't any of the regular cast. That was obviously an actor they brought in to do that. So
wearing a white coat, holding a folder.
Yeah. I know from my work, if you want to look professional for some TV crews, you always just put on the old lab coat and look like you're scientific. But it's interesting is that I have some old tapes, and when you look at the old ads, there's just so many laundry detergent commercials, and over and over, and a lot of them targeting moms at home and their kids and the stains and all this sort of thing. But I was looking up this just laundry detergents back in the 90s, and apparently it was a market that was really competitive back then. And in a 1993 article from the Financial Review, it basically says that sales were falling of laundry detergents because of the concentrated detergents that were coming in from the British brands and from Cussons in particular. So I guess it was at that time where everyone just they were giving away samples, they were doing a lot of marketing. So that's probably why people were just over all of this laundry ad stuff. And
we've got these chemicals that make it better. We make your whites whiter and brighter colours.
Does anybody want to try pronouncing all of the unpronounceable chemical names that were spouted?
I'll go on.
Well, how about I tell you that shite contains sodium polyphosphate and anionic surfactant, and over-enunciate the words titanium dioxide complex, butyl methoxybenzoyl methane, and tocopherol acetate. They're not in the detergent, but I thought I'd say them just to shit you.
Because all that reminds me of, and I don't know whether those made-up chemical names were written by Tony, but it reminds me of the new breakthrough from Mark Malloy Pharmaceuticals. New Panametabutylophenol supracetameta
parabisohypnobola bafuscristol.
Oh, you should have done in unison.
I don't think we can do it.
Give it away now. 5 was the end of it.
I must admit, I am cheating a bit here because I am reading it out here, but yeah.
With a new anti-quafting Sifter-fed formula.
With hypocytine, paramucibol, and ribonasal histamine, bafuscristol, maving, hybo, give it away now, 5.
Yeah.
Ask for it by name.
Yeah. By the time you've asked for it, your headache is buggered off down the pub. I told you, I listened to this soft taped a lot. I used to know that whole thing off by heart because of the wordplay of it. But yeah, when I saw that sketch in this episode, I went, "That's got to be a Tony sketch." It just
reeks of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're on stage, and Jane sets up the highly produced and budget-blowing Snowy, which not to be confused with the Man from Snowy River TV series. This was Snowy, which was just a short mini-series on Channel 9. Because when I went to try and find some grabs for the original show, that's all that came up, the Man from Snowy River, not the Snowy one. So,
not a single thing about hydroelectricity in sight.
Say something to me in Italian.
I don't know, blokes around here are all the same. It's hydroelectricity this, hydroelectricity that. You're different. Say something to me in Italian.
Idroelettricità.
That's my favourite line. I love that.
It is. I do love the sketch shows, and it's not just the Late Show, but lots of sketch shows. The sketches themselves, because fans, cling onto them. The parodies last longer than the original that is being parodied. So I couldn't tell you anything about Snowy, but I could tell you everything about the kind of show it would have been based on that parody. Just the earnest,
The thing is that I haven't seen the original Snowy that they're parodying this on either, but didn't they essentially do this sketch without having actually seen any of the actual show? Like, it might have just been the promos that had gone out, and that's it. So
that would not surprise me.
So it's just packed with cliches, Damn it, Mac.
Yeah, I love Damn it, Mac.
Isn't Tom just a great kind of old curmudgeon old man with his walking stick, and he's just
saying unintentional racial slurs?
Yeah, all these people we haven't made up racial slurs for yet.
Yeah.
And soon they'll have their own television station.
Ooh, what's that?
I was just going to mention we also got a little cameo by Aaron Beaucaire standing up the back, trying not to be
seen. In the
seen.
You're Full of Shit scene. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 6 things you can't tame.
There's also this other cameo.
Listen to me, Nate. We're not just turning water into electricity. It's much harder than that. We're attempting an entire drama series without a single dado in it.
Wrong, my friend.
There we go. That's the second dado that's been on the show as well. Yeah. We had Cameron with his 4.5 minutes of.
Oh God, 4.5 minutes of shit. That's probably my second favourite Late Show sketch after Warren Perso.
And now Andrew. Now I know that Matt didn't have any success getting in contact with Cameron. Were you any luckier trying to get in contact with Andrew?
I gave up.
Fair enough.
Right at the end of Snowy, in the episode, they show you them actually making that sort of the sort of brass plaque of Snowy with the rain coming down on it. And it says, "Can someone fix this bloody leak?" And that's not on the best of, because the sketch
because
is on
it
the best
absolutely
of.
died in the ass on the night.
Yeah, I know, but it's interesting. It's like a little bonus feature. I mean, I'm not saying it's a great joke, but it's interesting that it's there.
Now it's a live sketch with Jeff Daly, a.k.a. Tony, of Frigid Air, promoting the Manila...
Oh, no, come on, say it like Rob Stitch says it.
All right, sorry.
Managing Director of Frigid Air.
Promoting...
The new Manila Chilladilla.
So that was to help with the transport of Ferdinand Marcos.
Can I give you a fun fact? I always like to tell people. So my mother's name is Imelda and my dad's name is Marcus.
Oh, no.
No way. Did your mum have a lot of shoes?
Yeah, did they share the shoes?
Not even remotely, but it was always...
Yeah, like you've never heard that question at all throughout your childhood as well.
It was always a very fun thing when people would recognise and go, Imelda or Marcus? So, yeah, that's my little... I've got a bunch of friends in the Philippines through the improv community. So I do a lot of improv and went to a festival there and loved telling people that, fun fact, my parents are named Imelda and Marcus, and they'll all go, oh, my God. And I was like, yes, this is the reaction I've been waiting for.
Just to go back to the sketch, did you notice that Tony, when he's playing Jeff Daly from Frigidaire, he's wearing a wig, which I think is either Jeff or Terry Bailey's hair.
It could very well be. It looks really weird on him.
He does look a bit Jeff and Terry Daly, doesn't he? He's just got this kind of dodgy looking suit and this crappy wig, and
it's the suit more than anything.
It's the vibe. There's definitely a vibe about.
So angular.
Yeah.
And now it's time for a produced sketch, which is where the teaser comes in. And so forth. There's a whole bunch of
them. And that was all from Matt's personal single collection.
It was, wasn't it? I do love, in hindsight, looking back at the logic of calling a girl group the Teen Queens, which maybe gave you 1 or 2 years out of them before they all turned 20 and they were no longer teen queens.
Or as we can see from this sketch, Gwen. He's a little a little bit old for that. But yeah, the teen queens are. I've got on my my smash hits A to Z encyclopedia, which basically every time I bought smash hits, you could compile your own encyclopedia by cutting out the page and sticking it on
week by week.
Oh my
yes,
God.
yeah, fortnight by fortnight. So Teen Queens, there's an entry for them here. The Teen Queens are Roxanne Clark, Liza Witt and Kelly Hogarth, 3 young Sydney lasses who had a rather major hit with Be My Baby and then went a bit squiffy with their second release, I Can't Help Myself. They all have spooky character names on account of the fact that they are actually characters on their own TV show. Wendy, Tammy and Kathy. Their third single, I Love How You Love Me, was featured countless times on E Street, was also at the song chosen to be sung at TV's Wedding of the Year between CJ and Tony on, guess where? E Street. The girls even appeared at the wedding reception to warble the tune for the happy couple. The girls have also filmed the pilot for their very own TV show, which should hopefully find its way onto our TV screens sometime early next year, which would have been in 93.
Oh, I wish it found its way onto YouTube instead.
I don't think it found its way.
Somebody must have a dodgy bootleg VHS somewhere.
But I was going to say, if you really want to see Teen Queens on E Street, it is on YouTube. And there is a whole episode where, what's his name? Patchett.
Yeah. Were they in the Coke ad as well, or no?
I don't know.
Oh, the E Street Coke ad where the house blows up at the end?
Only Patchett admits that he's a big fan of the Teen Queens and they all come into Patchett's pub for a meet and greet type thing. Everything happens at Patchett's Pacific pub. You can see it all came from the same company, the same production company that also did that show. I was going to grab my E Street box set, but it's not worth it. Just to
keep that in cold storage, Matt.
Yes. But this whole sketch is basically... Oh, and also Kelly Hogarth, who was in the Teen Queens, is also known as the Pizza Hut, the Works girl from back in the 90s.
Oh.
And
I know her more for High Five.
And High Five, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh, High Five! That's what she went on to do.
Yeah, it was Charlie, Kelly, and what's her name?
Nathan?
Yes.
Catherine.
There was
the Leon.
Yes, there was a Nathan and another bloke as well.
Yeah.
The original High Five. I don't think High Five exist anymore, do they?
No, but they were much more lucrative than the Teen Queens.
Yeah, well, like the Wiggles, the Cockroaches and the Wiggles, same diff.
Well, yeah.
This whole sketch is basically all about the girls next door, which is development of the mashup of girl groups, really, in their teens. So, like Girlfriend and Teen Queens. And
they're very much channeling Bananarama as well, and the sort of Stock Aitken and Waterman sort of musical style. So
that's singing in unison.
Yeah, it's mainly the Teen Queens, but you get vibes of Kylie and Jason and all their sort of early 90s music and all that stuff.
Baby, come and make it a love connection. You and me heading in the right direction.
Sure, when the girls first started out, they copped a lot of criticism. People said they couldn't sing, they couldn't dance. But with Love Connection, they finally proved you don't need those things.
Good old Glenn
Wheatley.
Good little cameo from him.
Yeah. Lost him this year, didn't we? Just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, recently, yeah.
But this is really catchy, this Love Direction song. I found myself singing it when I was watching it back in the day, and today just hearing it again for the first time in so long. It
really does sound like it was written by Stock Aitken and Waterman or something. It's it's that sort of song.
Well, did you notice when they're doing that whole sex you up image type thing, and you had Melanie and Tamara dressed in their 90s, and you had Gwen in a full 1950s full body gown, but their record label was a play on Molly Meldrum's album, record company, Melodian, as they called it, and Molly Meldrum's one was Melodian.
Yeah, it was. Melodian Records was co-founded by Ian and Molly Meldrum and Michael Gudinski, and their first couple of signings to the label were Indecent Obsession,
Obsession, yeah,
and Roxas.
Yes,
Roxas.
But I would say, that they're probably well known for another washboard abbed guy,
Peter Andre.
I thought you were going to say that.
Mr. Repetitious Song Girl.
So 1993 was the year that I saw, at the end of the year, Madonna in concert, her first ever concert in Australia, the Girly Show. She was voguing. She was doing
lovely
the erotica.
voguing, Matt.
There was a simulated orgy live on stage. I was 13, had no idea what was going on. Just like, they'll have a lot of hugging. Oh, okay. Peter Andre opened for Madonna. He was the opening act. And I remember
that was 94, wasn't it?
93.
Yeah, I remember 93 because I was on my Year 11 cruise in Sydney Harbour, and I wasn't at the Madonna concert, but people were like, I'm not going, who were going to the Madonna concert, weren't going on the cruise. So it was either or. You could either be going to the Madonna concert or going on the Year 11 cruise, and then we could see the lights in the distance thinking, wish we were somewhere more interesting than Sydney Harbour.
Do you know what? I remember wanting to go to the Madonna concert, but the ticket price was $40. And you think, well, $40, that's nothing these days. When you're like sort of 15, in the in 1993 it was, you haven't got $40. Didn't have $40, so I didn't go.
Also, the only joke from this sketch that makes it to the best of compilation is Jane Kennedy rolling her knuckles over the black keys on a keyboard and it turning into a song titled Da-da-la-da-da. Yeah, I was just wondering, what is the actual name of that? I don't know if you want to call it a tune or not, but...
Isn't that one of those piano exercises that kids learning... It sounds like one of those things that you learn.
It's something all kids did when they happen to be in front of a piano with no supervision.
Is that or chopsticks?
I feel like it was a play on... It's not chopsticks, but I feel like it was a play on something. Like it was a minor version.
It's like that one where you go do 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 do.
Heart and Soul.
No.
See, like this
popcorn. You're singing. That's popcorn.
It was on the black keys. It was
See, all of this stuff gets passed on from generation to generation by osmosis, I think.
Yeah. There were certain things that you would know how to play. One was chopsticks, one was heart and soul, and one was that black key thing. Diddle-in, din-din, diddle-in. So,
which from now on will officially be titled Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. I'm surprised the whole sketch didn't make it to the video.
Only snippets of it, yeah.
It's a fairly lightweight concept, although it's a pretty lightweight subject considering it's talking about, girl groups.
Yeah, and maybe that just wasn't when they went back to do the videos. That wasn't sort of in vogue anymore, and they might think, people won't know who Girlfriend and stuff is. But
yeah, good point.
20 years later,
they vanished into obscurity that quickly.
But then they came back, with the Spice Girls, and yeah. They're always around. They always come back.
So yeah, like most of these documentaries, it all finishes up with lots of text on screen.
Yeah, because they break up. Eventually, Tamara moved to Sydney to marry a lesser-known dado. More dado jokes. Melanie moved to Adelaide. I'm sorry to hear that, Daniel. And married an even lesser-known dado. So, and then Gwen went and joined the Tin Lids.
And now, do people know that joke? Would people now get that joke?
Oh yeah, that gets made a lot. Yeah.
Well, the Tin Lids was Jimmy Barnes' kids.
Jimmy Barnes'
essentially.
kids, yeah.
Well, all the Tin Lids play with Barnesy now, so.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
It's a family event. Up.
Yeah. Jackie Barnes is the official drummer and stuff.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
How lovely.
Is like the official backup singer and all that, yeah.
And do they still sort of, do they bring on Jimmy Barnes with a rousing rendition of Walk the Dinosaur? Or do they still...
I want to see that live, Walk the Dinosaur. I want Tin Lids to do Walk the Dinosaur.
I know.
Opened by Peter Andre.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone under 40 will be like, what the hell is going on?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. We're back on stage and Judith does a bit of a stand-up routine.
Hang on. You don't want to go through the freeze frame gallery?
Oh, that's been done in the past before.
Not that specifically. There was a very fast changing montage of what seemed to be offcuts from the graphics department, but this was something specifically made for those people that were taping the show. And you can tell, you can really tell from what Tony Martin has said in the years since about some of the stuff that appears in the freeze frame gallery, that this was all organised by Tony. There's things like a page from a bar jar script and a clipping from the Melbourne Truth talking about a horse being interfered with a picture of the horse with the caption underneath, "The Rape Victim."
Well, I was going to say that was
story a lot. He's told that story a lot about the horse molester who's now in a psychiatric facility with a picturesque view of Warrnambool Racecourse.
That's right.
It was his favourite story that the Truth ever did, and he refers to it often. But yeah, it's very charming.
And I think there might have also been a photocopy of some of the complaints from the ABC switchboard log was another thing. This is all just from memory, by the way. I didn't.
I went through it.
I did not have the VCR to go through and go.
Yep.
It was just random pausing for me.
I went through it, and there's a complaints log from the first episode of The Late Show. So there's complaints about the Diana sketch, and a few more others, and people just basically ringing up to saying these people are not funny, right? And the Diana sketch was tasteless. Were
the names Warnicky or Fidgen in
that? It just says man or woman as the complainant. They don't take their actual given names. But anyway, apart from that, you get to see there's a publicity photo for the 1987 Melbourne University Comedy Review, which has got Jason and Mick in it. There's what else is there? Oh yeah, there's an obituary for Charlie the Wonder Dog as well. And you get to see the Get Flared record, which is from Dag Quiz from the D-Generation radio program. So there's quite a lot of fun to be had by Freezer. Oh, and the Triple M 1990 Christmas card where they're all dressed up as kind of 70s dags as well. So lots of kind of nerdy D-Gen stuff to enjoy. Just keep clicking along and you'll get all this stuff.
We've got Judith on stage doing a stand-up routine as well as answering back to a backchat comment, which is this.
Since, you know, I'm on the tellies, of course, feedback, which is why I never like to miss an episode of Backchat, and I was particularly thrilled with this
The
episode.
rot seems to have set in with the hiring of that repellent feminist.
And, you know, the funny thing is, it's hard to know these days whether you should be more offended by repellent or feminist, really, isn't it? Because I looked feminist up in the dictionary the other day, and it said, you know, advocate of women's rights on the grounds of equality for the sexes, comma, killer of small children.
The rot seems to have set in.
Yeah, it's a bit
my
harsh, isn't it?
gosh.
You know, it really does astound me that, you know, she was 24.
Yeah.
So young, so young. And I know that people, like, when I was 24, I did not feel young. But now that I am old, I just look back and go, how could you have achieved, like, it's phenomenal. I mean, they were all in their, late 20s.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You're looking back now, you think, I didn't do all of that when I was that age, you know?
Yeah, and they'd already done, you know, radio for 5 years, and they'd already done, I was like, how did they get into, I worked in radio for 10 years, mostly in news radio journalism, things like that, but I tried occasionally to kind of go, I'd like to do a show. Could I try something? And just nothing.
They, you know what, it was good timing and they were really talented. And the problem is now that there are lots of really talented people who could probably do equally as well. It's just there aren't the opportunities for them. You know, it's it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, because there was a local radio stations. Now what you get in radio is you get, you know, Husey and Kate broadcast nationally, or whoever it is now.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Kyle and Jackie, and it's broadcast nationally, or I mean, I guess that's what Martin Malloy was, but I suppose you still had your local breakfasts and
like everything else apart from, you know, those 2 hours and a few hours, you know, at night with the countdown. Everything else would have been local on each station. I mean, the sort of saving grace, I suppose, these days is that anyone can put out a podcast. Anybody can, you know, be their own media outlet and serve, you know, find whatever audience they want to.
It's hard to get an audience, though. You know, publishing a podcast, you don't suddenly find you've got millions of people listening to it. It's
probably, you're probably doing it more for the love of it, kind of like we are with this podcast. It's not as lucrative as Today FM Breakfast is.
And thank you very much to our listener.
Yeah.
Going back to Judith's stand-up, we get to see her commenting on the Watch ad as well. Yeah, including taking the piss out of the assertion that the lady depicted in the Watch ad is somehow in control because of the way that she has her arms placed.
Oh, yeah, there's
well, I think you'll find I'm in control right now. This is a visual.
Yeah.
This is a visual joke that will not work for you at home, listener. But if you can imagine, I'm holding my hand in the same sort of awkward, handshaky position. The great thing about jokes is when you explain them, they're so much funnier.
She was really good at cutting through just the kind of crap excuses, wasn't she? And still is. You know, she just goes, no, that's not true. This is how it is, and she makes it funny, and that's why I like Judith anyway.
Bargeass, Where's Me Bloody Dim Sims, episode 3, and it's starring.
Hey.
Sorry, stealing that joke from another Tony Martin show. Kim Beazley.
I love the Kim Beazley theme. I have to confess, and I don't know, I'm sure you've canvassed this on the pod many times. I am more of an olden days girl than a Bargeass girl.
I agree. I'm more of an olden days person.
I hadn't really thought about which side I would pick in this. I mean, certainly if you're talking about quantity, there's certainly more of the olden days to go around.
And if you're talking about farts, then there's more.
I like both. I like both. I think, you know, obviously you could probably argue that the olden days is the more intellectual of the pair, given that it's not so based on fart jokes. But then on the other hand, I really enjoy fart jokes, and there are some great ones in this. And also, you know, think about the writing talent who's involved in Bargeass. You know, this episode, for example, is adapted from the play by George Bernard Shaw. Yeah, you know, you don't get that.
Time,
yeah, we had Franz Kafka based on the novel by Franz Kafka. You don't get that level of writing excellence on the olden days.
That is very true.
My order's simple: a shitload of dim sims. Oh, that's a lot, even for a fat bastard like you. And I want a bucket of soy sauce with that.
Yeah, there's some really dramatic moments in this with the train that just would not stop.
Yeah.
I can so tell that joke is pure Tony Martin, because I'm sure he's done similar sort of jokes like that where things take up a lot of time and it sort of goes from being funny to not funny to being funny again. And he's talked about being influenced by The Goon Show, which is a 1950s British radio comedy, where they would spend a good full 2 minutes, falling down a flight of stairs, for instance.
Mike Myers does a similar thing. If you look at like a lot of the Austin Powers movies and stuff, there's just that push the joke to where it's not funny anymore, and then push through it, and then you find this whole new plane of like, what the hell is going on? Like the evil laughing, and there's a bunch of evil laughing in Austin Powers, I should say. But there's a bunch of just wear out their welcome, and then all of a sudden they break you mentally, and then you find a new joy in them all.
There's also that really great gag about with Glenn 20's in his car, and he says, I can't move the car because someone's bouncing up and down in my bonnet. And, it's kind of, it's like a nice kind of fourth wall joke about television production. So you get that kind of comedy in this as well.
Weren't all the Crawford's productions specifically, they would have somebody bouncing up and down on like a plank that's sticking out of the car to try and simulate movement?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure
that's what the joke's about, yeah.
But I think that was a trope sort of common to Crawford's productions as well.
Including chances. Sorry.
Things were going down for different reasons there.
In the sex scenes, there's someone with a plank under the mattress just bouncing. I mean, we've all got kinks, but,
Glen 20 being stuck. Barge ass ends up going to the race course because he's just so hungry he could eat a horse.
Have you considered our smorgasbord? It's your choice.
Okay, I'll have the number 5 with black bean sauce.
As well as Glen 20 does call in, still stuck at the level crossing, and last time he ate a 2,000-pound quadruped, there was a problem with the plumbing.
Flush or full.
Oh.
There we go. Ending on that old staple toilet humour. Good on you, writers.
So we've got Commercial Crime Stoppers, and Mick and Santo reflect on Sandhurst Machinery. So that's the original. Now, Sandhurst Machinery was done a couple of episodes ago, and so it was the one that John Farnham did a rendition of.
Sandhurst Machinery.
And the single has gone gold, and so Sandhurst provided him with a toolbox.
In musical circles, folks, the toolbox is more important than a Grammy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what it's...
200 jokes between us, Chill. And we're struggling on the Crime Stopper desk, aren't we?
And I'm pretty sure that gold record had a Mushroom Records label on it, which makes me think that it might have been one of the D Generation's own records, perhaps.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
5 in a row or 5 more in a row? Which one?
I couldn't quite work out from, again, my tapes are wearing out, you guys. You have to really, squint.
Nice. But did you squint enough to see the cameo from Alf Camilleri?
No, he stood out like the proverbial.
Yeah. But then they actually move on into proper commercials, such as the well-known J&B music plugs, really. Like the cassette tapes that we all should still have of a panpipe ad.
J&B proudly present Panpipe Masterpieces. Our 44 most requested favourites played on the majestic panpipe, including the unforgettable theme from The Godfather.
See, George Zamfir, I knew he was going to be involved. I just wonder whether the theme from Picnic at Hanging Rock's going to get a mention. Of course. On cue.
And more.
44 most requested panpipe songs. Who's requesing this?
I don't know.
I mean, if you're on a date,
sent letters into JB Records.
if you're on a date and you brought someone home, or they took you home and they're like, I'm just going to put on some relaxing music, and they put on a 44-track album of panpipe classics.
Across 2 compact discs?
I think you'd probably want to hit the road because that's a bit creepy. It's an unsettling instrument, the panpipe, although maybe that's my, cultural ingrained knowledge from Picnic at Hanging Rock. Maybe that's why I find it unsettling, because of the
Yeah, it's a bit sinister, isn't it? I think if I was bringing someone back to my place and I was going to stick on a bit of panpipe music, I'd probably go for Santo's panpipe album.
Panpipe magic, including Smoke on the Water, Can the Can, Sandhurst Machinery, Ballroom Blitz.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Mick? All right, fellas. Well, let's go!
Santo's Panpipe Magic.
The Ballroom Blitz one got me. That actually did get me.
Really good.
Triple your panpipes. Yeah, but there were a lot more on the screen that I didn't note down, but there were a lot of like Comfortably Numb and Beatles songs and Rolling Stones songs and others that were you just couldn't even fathom on a panpipe. So yeah, they did a good job with the rolling text.
Yeah, the one that stood out for me was Con the Fruiter's A Couple of Days. I don't even remember that one.
Co-written by Colin Hay from Men at Work from memory.
Yes. So they decide to reach out to the original composer of the Sandhurst Machinery commercial to redo the Late Show theme.
It's a Saturday late show with the DJ on ABC. There's Tony Martin, Mick Malloy, Judith Lucy and Jane Kennedy. Sacco Chalero, Jason Stevens, Rob Sitch and Tommy G. You'll see Kramer the Colonel and Barjas for you. News desk shit scanning but breaking too, yeah. It's all on the Late Show on ABC TV.
See, they cut it there, but there was plenty more. So whoever was on stage or whatever to keep the applause, kickstart it, they went too early on it because there was still a little extra verse there.
Yes, I did notice that. They kind of clapped over whatever the end joke was going to be, got lost.
Yeah.
I was too distracted by the pronunciation of Santo Chalero.
At least it wasn't Snato Gauro.
The next bit is a commercial all about UB40 screwing up your favourite hits.
I love this.
Well, the basic gag is, and there were a lot of people who kind of took the piss out of UB40 because they're white guys doing reggae essentially, and so the tagline for this sort of mock ad for a UB40 album is reggae at its whitest.
I will note though that I think UB40, I saw this in the news, they're touring Australia this year. So you talk about Duran, and now you've got UB40 still touring.
Still going. Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, it's also because they were mostly known for covers. So Red Red Wine and I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. I think those are the two big ones. I can't think of the third one. So, but the parody choices that they choose for this mock ad are pretty good. Going through Madonna's Like a Virgin, Don McLean's American Pie, Plastic Patron's Ça Plane Pour Moi. And then, of course, again showing the Triple M roots, Acca Dacca.
Yes, that was fun.
Back on stage with another return of a classic sketch, which is a live sketch, that is. And that is a new dinner party conversation.
Yeah.
Dinner Party 3, people who you should avoid.
Yeah.
I'd completely forgotten that they'd done this dinner party sketch, because the first two they did are so well known from the compilations, and this one, completely forgotten about it.
I think it's just ever diminishing returns is just why they, nothing, as far as I can tell from part 3, made it to the best of.
Yeah, it's pretty forgettable. But watching this, I thought, oh gosh, we're all going to start having, well, we're not really going to start having dinner parties, but we're all going to pretend to have dinner parties, so we better brush up on the etiquette. And so we are treated to, Rob Sitch, who's got his real life medical background, talking about his dental surgery. There's always one of those. I thought that was the funny bit, but pretty much.
Did I mention I've had my wisdom teeth out? Yeah. And the incredible thing is that each one was impacted, and like he had to get the pliers up here, and he had that expression where he's going, and he goes, bang, and all the pus came out.
Disgusting.
I really enjoyed Rob. You know, he's known in these sketches and for lots of other sketches actually for wearing the stupidest wig he could find in the ABC wig department. And I have to say, this Rick Astley kind of ginger wig is really quite something.
Oh God, that's so it. That's
he's never going to give that up.
Exactly.
He's also got a very, very nifty sugar bottle of wine. When they were passing the wine bottle, I was like,
it's so obviously something they're going to break, isn't it? You know, it's badly made.
I suppose you've got limited time. I've used sugar glasses a couple of times when you order them and they arrive, and like they're definitely visibly. So I think they must, you must probably paint them and put a label on them and then try and shoot them from a distance to make them look slightly more believable.
I like it though when it's the would-be comedian telling tedious old jokes.
There were these 14 guys. There was an American, an Englishman, an Irishman, and there was a Finnish guy.
I'm sure there was.
Finnish.
Not
There was a
only
Lithuanian. Anyway, all these 29 guys, they were on a bus. And Paddy says, "Whoa, look at that, there a sign."
We presume at this point Paddy is Sicilian, but it's wide open.
And the bow tie that Santo is wearing is doing a lot of the work for him as well.
But yeah, as they go through all the characters, it's more or less a disaster after disaster with these. And I especially love the fact that they brought someone from the audience who's the compulsive talker, and they just sat there.
She was sassy.
Apparently.
Yeah.
She was sassy. She was kind of like...
That was very well timed, that drinking of the wine, wasn't it? She really did a good job there.
She'd seen the first two.
We get things like, Judith as the compulsive dishwasher and Jane as the victim of a recent breakup. And it's all pretty much by the numbers, but I think that the ending is a lot better than the journey, as it were.
Who's for coffee?
I'll have an espresso, thanks. In one of those little small cups because they're easy to clean.
Right.
I'll have a lungo macchiato.
I'll have a...
When you're ready.
I'll have a cafe latte, per favore.
Per me è un po' tardino, allora non so se credo per me berei una cup of tea.
Okay. 3 coffees and 1 tea. And what were you after?
I'm just here to introduce the toilet break, actually.
Tony coming up from underneath the table.
Yeah, he's been under the table the whole sketch.
Oh, God.
Dedication.
Yeah. Only to lead into the toilet break, which is Act 6, Michael Warren singing Elvis's Don't Cry Daddy.
Don't cry, Daddy. Daddy, please don't cry.
The highly confident Michael Warren, and I use those quotes as a...
Well, he's going to be a legend and a millionaire by the time he's 30.
Well, let's just
we all know him, don't we? We all know the name.
Yeah.
Michael Warren.
Yep, and this is Bernard's response.
I'm just recovering from the misery of crying. Do you have a very particular ambition, young man?
A very big one. I'm going to be a legend.
In the singing business, you're going to be a legend.
No, I'm going to be an entertainer or everything. I want to make movies. And...
Are you? Within how many years do you expect to achieve this?
I'll be a millionaire by the time I'm 30.
Yes. I suppose in this crowded and confused world there's room for yet another dithering, shambling mess who just modern entertainment business is so perverse. If you find a gimmick, there might be a gimmick you could add to the little that you have to offer that might... Stripping might do it. 16, it needs something.
Poor Michael. Like, just like putting his head up there and just getting absolutely, like, you can see the glee in Bernard King's eyes going, oh, you're going to be a legend, are you? And sort of like just absolutely counting him down.
I wondered what he was up to, and I managed to reach out to Michael Warren, and This is what the legend had to say. Michael Warren, thank you for joining this podcast.
No problem. Thanks for asking me.
We're talking about your appearance on Potluck, and it was also featured on the Late Show Toilet Break. You sang on Potluck performing an Elvis cover of Don't Cry Daddy.
Correct, yeah. It's one of my favourite songs.
Now, you are a major Elvis fan, aren't you?
A freak, yeah. Major Elvis freak since I was 5.
How did you get onto Potluck?
Well, they had an audition process, but I can't really remember the audition that well. I sort of remember showing up, and I think I sang along to the recording, I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I gave them the tape, and they sort of duplicated the orchestrations, and that's what happened.
What year was this filmed in?
87.
And this was all filmed in Adelaide, wasn't it?
It was in Adelaide, yeah. I think that show travelled around. So they would come to Adelaide and then they'd go to Melbourne and stuff like that. I think that's how it worked. I was given the microphone and I came in late. I sort of couldn't listen to the music properly and I just came in late. And I thought, oh, shit, what am I going to do? And then the microphone didn't work. So that was like my saving grace. And so I stopped. I said, oh, your microphone doesn't work. And they changed the microphone and I just did it again. And so the one you see on the show is actually the second take. Bernard King told me I should be a stripper and a whole bunch of stuff.
What was your reaction to Bernard's comments, even though he was known to be quite a harsh judge?
He was. I don't think he was as harsh with me as he was with some others. But, yeah, I mean, you're sort of expecting it. Patsy Biscoe is the one that got me because I actually have epilepsy and anxiety brings on the seizures. And I remember once I wrote a song for my cousin's girlfriend, who's now his wife, and I couldn't get through the song because I kept having seizures all the time because I was so nervous. And I thought, what am I going to do? Because I don't want that to happen on TV. So I actually had a stubby of beer and a couple of Serapaks to sort of calm down a bit.
Yeah.
And I managed to get through it without an issue. But when Patsy Biscoe comes on and she says, I've never seen anyone so relaxed in front of a camera before. Now you know why.
Go to Serapaks.
Yeah.
Well, on the spot, obviously you're nervous, but also underlining, you want to be successful, like you're aiming for the stars. So are you a millionaire? That's right. Yeah. Are you a millionaire right now?
No.
You became a millionaire.
I'm getting married in October.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Richie, I'm sort of rich-like. I'm rich in the heart.
Congratulations to that.
Thanks a lot.
So did you end up being in other entertainment venues, like making movies and TV series, or did you just continue on with your recording? No, I just continued doing what I was doing. I did one song on another show. I can't remember if it was before or after. I think it was after, actually. I sang That'll Be the Day or something on some morning show in Adelaide. That went over all right. What else did I do? That's about it, really. I still record. I write songs and record. I started writing songs then, but I wasn't really confident enough to do any of my own stuff. So I did Elvis because it's what I knew. Did you end up winning, like with a score of 16 from Bernard anyway? I got a score of 47, which was the second lowest. Ouch. At least I'm not the lowest. Are you a fan of the D-Generation Late Show when it was on TV? I did watch it, and I watched it that night it was on. And the next day I went into town, went to a favourite record shop where everyone knew me, and every one of them saw it as well. It was quite a cultish show, that show was, at the time. Everyone watched it. When you saw it, did you freak out, or did you just like, oh, my God? Before it was over, I got phone calls. You're on TV, you're on TV. I know. They're just so casual. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, I'm cool. Yeah, inside though, I'm freaking out. And after the Late Show, they remembered me. I was getting stopped in the street for 20 years after that. I couldn't believe it. I remember once I was walking down the street and these DJs were doing a live to air thing in the street. And one guy got up and started following me, asked me, are you Michael Warren? I said, yeah. He says, you're on Potluck. You want to come back and do an interview? So I did an interview with the guy, and that was it. That was like maybe nearly 20 years later after the Late Show. That's crazy. And then 30 years later, I'm having a Zoom chat with you. I get a phone call from you. I used to always say, imagine what I could do if I did something good. Yeah? Unbelievable.
How did you find him?
I've got my ways.
That's so cool.
So he's not a millionaire, he's not rich, but he's rich in his heart. So congratulations on your upcoming wedding.
Yes, well done, Michael. And thank you so much for chatting to the podcast. So, and he's very quite humble. So totally opposite to we're all judging him on toilet break, really. But please stay tuned to the end of this podcast where he's given me a song to play just to show that he's come a long way as well. So as a big thank you for being part of the show. So his website...
Wow, even this podcast gets a musical finale.
Yeah. So his website, if you want to check out his stuff, is My Songs Music. It's mai-songsmusic.com. It goes under the stage name of Lucky Jackson, which is a character that Elvis Presley plays in his movies. So that's the whole Elvis connection.
That is so nice.
Yeah. So thank you again, Michael, for being a good sport.
Okay, so leaderboard time. So Michael Warren got 16 points from Bernard. Now that puts him equal 7th on the leaderboard, tying with the Nelligan sisters who sang True Blue in episode 5.
Now it's time for Graham and the Colonel. Yeah. And this is all about tennis and chess and props, really. But Wally Mussoa in the US Open got in with a note from his mum. I don't get that one.
Well, they said he was like 100 and something in the world rankings, so he sort of scraped an entry into the tournament, I think is the gag.
Gotcha. And chess is changing with some incredible innovations.
They've introduced some new pieces.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, they've got rid of the rooks, right?
Boring.
And they've replaced them. In one corner, there's the diving man from Mousetrap.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. He's there. You've got to drop a marble on him and then he goes, right?
And what about the other rook?
There's a battling top.
Oh, really? That'd be like playing...
Crash. It's all in the wrist action.
That'd be like playing your Joker, wouldn't it? Just
bang! They're all gone. That is very exciting. And you know what? In a few weeks' time, they're introducing... No.
Yeah, pretty much the joke here is World Series chess.
Yep, and also, what have I got here? It's all about the approach, really, getting the crowd involved.
Kasparov's a wanker.
Kasparov's a wanker. We must move on.
Graham and the Colonel are wankers.
They joined in a little quick for my
Yeah. And also there's Merv Hughes' injury, which they go into strenuous detail.
Yeah, a really weird joke, really weird visual joke.
Yeah, it didn't quite... was it supposed to be a nose? It didn't look like a nose. It was
a diagram of a leg and a knee, but sort of made so that the Colonel could interpret it as a mo.
It was a sort of Mr. Squiggle type joke, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. Yes, but it didn't. They didn't turn the.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe they did it better in rehearsal and then they screwed it up.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
Yeah.
And then sort of towards the end of the Graham and the Colonel bit, Rob seems to get really, really weird. I think sort of doing a lot of leaning over the desk and trying to, I don't know, just trying to G up everybody. I think.
Yeah, I guess he's thinking that, you know, it's kind of dying a bit, you know, because the sort of the night chess, they built this elaborate night chess plot and then it just sort of died comedically. So Rob was just sort of leaning over the desk to try and make the audience laugh and just keep them on side. But he kind of needn't have done that because there's some quite good jokes at the end, like they're talking about strepsils and how that was invented by Lord Alfred Strepsil, and then the Barocca was invented by the Marquis de Baroque, you know, which is kind of decent sort of Graham and the Colonel gags, but there is a bit sort of in the middle of their routine where they're sort of struggling a bit, I think.
But I do like that when they just talk about the 2000 Olympic decision being 2 weeks away. What are Sydney's chances?
They are very good on 3 levels. Superb sporting facilities, organised travel arrangements, and all important, this is the big one, the number 3. IOC President Samaranch can add an extra syllable when he reads out the name. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Atalanta. See, he can say, Sydney. Sydney. You can't do that with Beijing. You can't do it with Beijing. Beijing. Manchester. What are you going to do in Manchester?
And what a foreshadowing, because...
The winner is Sydney, Australia.
But that's
spoilers. I was going to wait 2 weeks to find out that. He just,
So this is extraordinary because I had this conversation with, I mentioned my friend Dan who's staying with me, who is a massive Late Show person. He pulled me up because I said, "Oh, that's right," because I didn't know that they'd done this and they'd foreshadowed that Juan Antonio Samaranch ended up saying Sydney, and Dan said, "No, he never said Sydney. He shortened it because they went back the next week." So in next week's podcast, and apparently in next week's Graham and the Colonel, they talk about him dropping a vowel as opposed to adding one. So he didn't pronounce the N. He just said City. And so I remember him saying Sydney. I remember it. And they all jumped up. I remember it. And he said, "No, you remember Graham and the Colonel saying Sydney. They're the ones who popularized it." And I went, "No way." And I went and looked up the YouTube clip and heard what you just played and was like, "Oh my God, this is a Mandela effect where I've remembered it."
This is exactly
Late Show, the Late Show memories have implanted what really happened. So yeah, he said Sydney as opposed to Sydney.
It's what we all believe because this is where it all started when we all assumed he said Sydney, but he didn't. He never said it. And they did acknowledge that the week after the announcement, but we still just kept saying Sydney, even though he didn't say it at all.
So that was probably my biggest revelation out of this episode was, holy crap, all this time I've believed Juan Antonio Samaranch said Sydney. It's like, yeah, so that's, my world's been shattered.
You're not going to get this, Nat, but it's like shit and Chick Magnet all over again.
Oh, no. Not that again.
Don't worry, Nat. Don't worry.
This one's much more widespread. I think there's a greater range of people who know the truth.
Yeah.
It's the Late Show version of Laurel and what's the other
Yanni.
one? That's the one.
Yanni and
Thank you.
Laurel.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on. And now we have the closing musical finale, and Mick was meant to get Joan Jett, but he ends up getting...
And I could tell it wouldn't be long till he was with me, yeah, me. And I love rock and roll, put another dime in the jukebox, baby. I love rock and roll, come and take your time and dance with me. Oh!
Joan Kerner shredding I Love Rock and Roll.
I mean, that's got to be the most iconic thing that came out of this episode in terms of longevity.
Oh, 100%.
And Sydney.
And
Sydney, yeah.
So, but the last 10 minutes basically just had...
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say I tried to, and unfortunately Joan Kerner is no longer with us, but I did try to reach out to David White, who's still around kicking, and I even reached out to the Victorian Parliament, and now they've blacklisted my email. But I tried to do it, but I wasn't successful. But Deborah at the inquiry desk saying that she remembers the clip well, a classic. So, yeah. In truth, she gave me another email for all the retired Parliament members and to say to email them and see what happens, but nothing. I didn't hear anything from him. So, yeah, I tried.
I was going to say that she rocked it, and I think had she been able to sing, the clip would not be as legendary as it is.
Yeah, that's what makes it, isn't it? Those bum notes.
She just goes for it, and you can see her reading the auto cue of the. Obviously, they had the lines on a screen or something like that, and you can see her just looking down and reading the lines, but she's just going for it. And then contrast that with David White when they, turn to him, and he's so serious, like he's in the full politician suit, and he's got the receding hairline, but he's looking down at the guitar just so seriously. And there's something very beautiful in that the ridiculousness of this very proper looking man fake playing a guitar.
I think also, not to be discounted, is the whole surprise of it. Like, a former Victorian Premier is the last person you would expect to pop up, singing a Joan Jett song on national TV.
Well, I was going to say that a listener of the podcast, Peter Phoebe, sent through a Joan Kerner article based on this, and he does mention, and I do apologise, I didn't really proofread the email. He asked Jane Kennedy about 10 years ago at a book signing about who was the hardest person to get to sing on the Late Show musical finales. Now, this has two answers to the question. The hardest booking-wise was Joan Kerner, and singing-wise, apparently was a future musical finale, which I won't mention yet. So there's no spoiler
But
alert.
look, I have heard them singing in another context, and I can confirm that, singing-wise, very hard. But yeah, let's not spoil things.
No, but I will tweet out and post on Facebook the articles so you can read for yourself. So it's pretty interesting.
I think why I think that probably worked extra well for Joan Kerner too is that she'd lost an election to Jeff Kennett, who by then had become very, I think, unpopular with a lot of cuts and, strong economic management type of government. And so all of a sudden you've got this former premier who's gone, putting on a leather jacket, singing some comedy with the fun people on the ABC. Yeah, exactly. So I think the jacket that she wore ended up in a museum or an exhibition of something like that at some point.
Didn't it ended up in Acme or wherever it was?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember the details, but I heard it's in a snatched conversation once. Don't quote me. But it's just a lovely humanizing moment for a politician. And that has shown them that they can work and they can also maybe not work. You have to really, you have to pick your battles.
Yeah, ScoMo and his ukulele maybe less worked, I would say.
There was someone at the very end for the audience tickets, Daniel.
Again, possibly as compensation for being dragged out of the audience, we had Diane from the dinner party Mark III sketch, who did a very good job of reading out the phone number and saying you've got to ring on Monday between 10 and 11 a.m.
And I was going to mention too, which I was going to throw to you originally, the credits. Was there any Easter eggs?
So these end credits were a bit harder to read because every single week previously they've just been scrolling from bottom to top, just up the screen. But this episode they were running horizontally from right to left, at the top and the bottom of the screen. So a bit harder to pause through on the old VHS. But from what I could decipher, the special guests were Andrew Daddo, the Honourable Joan Kerner AM, Glenn Wheatley, and the Honourable David White MLC, with Carol Ann Aylett and Nina Landis. They also said thanks to ABC News, Ron Cruz, the Melbourne Metro nightclub. That's where the Joan Kerner piece was filmed. Paul Mulqueen, the Reefton Hotel, McMahon's Creek. I'm not quite sure what that would have been used for. My guess is that it might have been the balcony. Oh, yes. Yeah, I was thinking more that might have been the balcony that Mick walks out on when he's pretending to be Michael Jackson. But
could have been
you're right. It'd be snowy. And as usual, Lucky Grills, the estate of the late Gerda Nicholson, and John Diedrich, who we're still on the search for.
Yes, the hunt for Diedrich.
Now, also, I flagged last episode that Dame Aru had appeared on the list of entities that the Dear Generation would like to thank. It looks like there's been another one that's been added to the list, along with Apocalypse, Sports Girl, The Facility, and Triple M FM. There's now also Apple Computer / Choice Systems. So obviously they must have gotten a discounted Mac or something.
Oh,
that can be the only reason.
All right, so thank you very much for that, Daniel. And now that's it for episode 33 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast. So feel free to reach out to us, email champagnelateshow@gmail.com, Twitter @TLSchampagne, champagnecomedy.com, Facebook, The Late Show page, or search for the Champagne Comedy Podcasters group as well on Facebook. It's on private, but answer the 3 questions and you're in. Also, our shoddy Redbubble site, bit.ly/champagnecomedy, where buy our stuff before it gets taken down. So I just want to say a big thank you, Natalie, for joining, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited I could make an episode recording. Matt has asked me previously and I haven't been able to make it, and I'm so happy I did. So thank you so much for having me.
And I do apologise, everyone. I've been a bit under the weather, so yeah, thank you for dealing with me with that. So yeah,
it's been fun, Nat.
Yeah, it's been an honour to meet another Late Show fan.
Oh,
great to have you with us, Nat.
Do you have anything to quickly plug?
Yes, I do have something to plug. Thank you for asking. I also have a podcast. It's called Raven On, and I co-host it with @DiscoStew on Twitter. This is Stuart Late. He is a journalist and a very, very long-held buddy of mine. We started the podcast as a Game of Thrones podcast back in 2015, and since Game of Thrones ended under somewhat cloudy circumstances, we have been podcasting about just other pop culture things, TV shows, movies. We did a big James Bond retrospective through 2020. That was our pandemic project. And since then, we've done a few Marvel TV shows. We just finished up a Batman retrospective, so we called it Raven Bat. So we went back and watched all the Batman movies and sort of recapped those. And we've just started a Robin Hood retrospective. So if you like Robin Hood movies, or if you don't like them, we are doing Men in Tights. I've had a few questions about that. We will do Men in Tights. But yeah, so we're going back and doing, I mean, there are heaps of Robin Hood TV shows and movies. So we're doing a curated list of probably the best known ones.
It's a good subject area to get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah, well, just how do different movies treat the legend of Robin Hood? How do they manage the different bad guys involved? How do they play Maid Marian? All that kind of stuff. And that's very precious to me because Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is one of my very, very, very favourite films. Love it in childhood, love it to this day, will defend it to the hilt. I will kill you if you disagree with me. So if you do disagree with me, listen to Raven On. You can find it on your regular podcast circles, but if you just look up Raven, Raven on, Pop Culture Podcast, hopefully it'll turn up for you in your podcast feed. I also run a small company in Brisbane called Act React. If you go to actreact.com.au, we do comedy shows and theatre shows, and, you know, obviously a lot of it inspired, or our sense of humour inspired by people like Tony Martin and things like that. So we do a lot of parodies, satires, pop culture inspired stuff, and we've got shows coming up in the Brisbane Comedy Festival in May 2022. So if you are in Brisbane, I would love to see you there. So those are my plugs, and if you want to chat, @GirlClumsy on Twitter is my handle.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much, Nat, as well as Alison, Daniel and Kim. Hooray, we made it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Catch you next time.
Champagne, sketch comedy.
Thank you for listening to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, created by fans for the fans. For more information on this podcast, please visit champagnecomedy.com. Produced by Matt Fulton Productions, mattfulton.com.au.
If you see the winds of change, nothing through
1:30.